For this session, we will talk about your introduction to government accounting. Particularly, we will discuss the concept of your government. How do we define government? Second, we will talk about government accounting per se. And in talking about your government accounting per se, we will talk about the functions of government accounting, the objective of government accounting, and the users of government accounting. Furthermore, we try to differentiate government versus your commercial businesses. So let's start and discuss the definition of government. So, how do we define government? Actually, government is defined under our law, which is PD 1177. That is your Budget Reform Decree of 1077. Now, in PD 1177, the government is defined as the national government, which includes the executive, the legislative, the judicial branches, and the constitutional commissions. Actually, this definition for me is one-sided. Sir, why is it one-sided? Because it is not truly encompassing of what is a government. For me, or a government actually is composed of the following: your national government agencies, your local governments, and finally, your government-owned and controlled corporations. Now, under your national government, there you have your executive, your legislative, your judicial branches, and your constitutional commissions. But since this is the given definition to us, then let's expound this definition. Again, this government definition is only one-sided because it talks only about your national government. It does not talk about your local governments and your GOCCs. Now let's talk about the composition of your national government. Based on your definition here, the national government is composed of your executive, your legislative, and judicial branches, including the constitutional commissions. You all know that we have your three co-equal branches, three co-equal branches of the government. So why they are considered co-equal? It is considered co-equal because no one is above the other. You cannot say that the executive is above the legislative or the judiciary is above the executive or legislative or vice versa. So they are equal as to their authority in the government. So again, since it's three co-equal government or three co-equal branches, let's try to define those three. So let's start first with legislative. The main purpose of your legislative is to enact laws. So when we say enact laws, that is to create laws. And in creation of laws, this is done by the Congress. So when I talk about your Congress, you all know that that is divided into two. We have your House of Representatives and we have your Senate. Normally, there is just laws that start with House of Representative, or there are laws that are concurred both by House and Representative and the Senate through a bicameral committee whatsoever. What we want here to learn in your legislative is that they have the power of the purse. So why do we say it has the power of the purse? It is the power of the legislative has the power of the purse because, as we all know, the General Appropriations Act or the national government budget is passed through a law. Therefore, there cannot be a usage of our purse or our funds or properties without an enactment of a law. That's why we said that the legislative has the power of the purse. Again, it has the power of the purse because without a law that is passed by the legislative for the appropriation of a particular budget, therefore, there is no usage of the funds or properties of the government. So they have the discretion on how to allocate or appropriate the money of the government. That's why they have the power of the purse. Why do they have the discretion? Because they enact laws. And a GAA or appropriation must be enacted by the legislative or the Congress. Now, after talking about your legislative, Let's proceed to your executive. So for your executive, so what is the purpose of your executive? If the legislative is to enact laws, your executive is to execute the laws. So once there is already an enacted law, the executive now will execute that law. How will the executive execute that law? Through its different departments, agencies, bureaus, or bodies. So the government will now execute it, the law that was enacted by the legislative. And if there are ambiguities as to the law created, the judiciary will mediate as to that ambiguities. Therefore, the judiciary shall interpret the law. But our focus here in your government accounting is purely on the power of the legislative or this power of the purse, the appropriation of the funds or properties of the government, ultimately to be disbursed for the use of the people or for the use or service of the government for the people. So that's the definition of your government. Again, it is one-sided. It only talks about your national government. Later, we will try to discuss and differentiate the three different organizations within the government. We have your national government, your local government, and your GOCCs. Now, let's try to differentiate government versus a commercial enterprise. So we have already discussed what is a government. Now we try to differentiate this to what we normally account for, which is your commercial enterprise. So government versus commercial enterprise. First, as to your ownership. So the ownership of your government is owned by your entire people or the people in the community. So actually, this is, I don't know if ever, this is only in the context of our textbooks or based on what is written, but what should have been the prevalent practice should have been that we, the people, has the power and our agents are who we elect. So the power still resides with the people, and we are considered the owners of the government. However, at some point, that is not the case. Actually, of course, in actual practice, that is not the case. Whoever is in authority, they felt that they have the ownership over the government. But that should not be the case because in actuality and even in our constitution, it is said that the owner of the government is the people. How about in commercial? In commercial, the owner of a commercial enterprise is, of course, the owner or proprietor or the investor or the stockholder, whichever term we call it. So whoever owns the business or commercial enterprise, that is the owner. Of course, whoever owns is the owner. Next, the purpose. The main purpose of your government is to render service. That is not to earn profits. Although you might debate that at least at some point the government earns taxes, but taxes is not considered are not considered earnings of the government. They are considered voluntary involuntary contributions of the people to continue the services of the government. It is not considered as an income. And if ever you will say that your licenses or your fees are still considered a profit under the government, no, they are not the main purpose of the government. They are only secondary as to licensing requirements or giving permits, but generally, their main purpose is to render service. So the usage of our funds, which is collectively given by the people through the tax, will be given back to the people by the rendering of the government of service. Uh, if you still remember under your taxation, that is uh, mutual benefits, or you can say it's more of a benefit receive. Next, we have your commercial. The purpose of your commercial is for profits, that is to earn income. So look at the difference. Government, you don't want to earn income, you just want to render a service. And for commercial, you want to earn income or profits. For organization, uh, the head of the government are the three co-equal branches, but actually some say that it is the Congress because without a law, what will the executive enact and what will the judiciary interpret? That's why they say it is the Congress who really is the head of the government. But since they are co-equal, they have the same authority. For me, the three are the co-equal branches of the government. And a while back, we also said that the government, aside from the three co-equal branches, we have your constitutional commissions. What are these constitutional commissions? So we have three. We have your COMELEC, we have your Civil Service Commission, and lastly, we have your COA. Sir, why do we say they are constitutional commissions? They are constitutional commissions because they are created by the Constitution. And since they are created by the Constitution, they are not within the three co-equal branches of the government. It is not within the authority of the legislative, it is not within the authority of the judiciary, nor it is not within the authority of the executive because they are separate and independent commissions created by the Constitution. So these are all independent and not within the ambit of the power of the three co-equal branches of the government. But they are not considered, those three are not considered within the authority. When we talk about who exercises authority, only the three co-equal branches, legislative, executive, and judicial. Now, as to commercial, as to organization and who exercises the authority, it is the owners or the BOD or the managing partner, whatsoever you term them. So whoever who makes the decision for a commercial business or an enterprise, then that is the one who exercises the authority. As to financing, I said a while back that the government is financed involuntarily. When we say involuntary, it is not actually because we want to donate money for the government, but because the money we pay to the government through our taxes is actually an involuntary exactment by the government. Involuntary because uh, the government assesses us so that the government continues its services under life blood doctrine. You all know that. It is involuntary again because the government needs to assess us. We don't voluntarily give our payment or we don't voluntarily give amounts to the government. The government will enact a law to tax us, the subject any person to taxation, and through that, you are involuntarily made to pay. For commercial, the financing is voluntary. Why is it voluntary as to financing? Because the fund of a business comes from the owners. And whatever is the amount the owner wants to invest in its business, then that is the amount to be financed to the business or commercial enterprise. That's why for commercial, the financing is voluntary. Now, as to income, we said that the main purpose of your government is to render service. Therefore, it is not for proprietary purposes. It is generally for service. But for commercial, it is for profit or for returns. So take note of the differences between government and commercial enterprise. We focus ourselves with the rendering of service as a purpose of the government, while for commercial, it is for profits. Okay? No profits for government. If there are certain fees or whatsoever collected by the government as a license, those are merely incidental and it is not the primary purpose. The primary purpose is to render service. Now, after differentiating government versus commercial enterprise, let's go to who makes the decision-making process in the government. So who has the authority to decide in the government? Our premise a while back is that it is the people who owns the government. Okay. So the ultimate authority for decision making in the Philippine government rests with the people. So still, it is the people. You know this one, that in a business enterprise, who has the highest authority? It is normally the owner or whoever exercises that authority. And you remember that the authority under the government, as we have discussed a while back, is residing within the people. Therefore, when we talk about who makes the decision for the government, it is the people. That's why those who are elected or in the government must act for the benefit of the people or for the welfare of the people. How great it is to think, right? However, I don't know if that's the case. But under this context, we say that the decision and anything that those who are in power must do is for the people. So this authority is exercised through duly elected representatives acting as agents of the people. So if you remember your agency, we have your principal and your agent. And remember, the agent must act for the best interest of the principal. And therefore, as the principal being the people is the principal, the agent is those elected or appointed. They are the agent. They must act for the best interest of the people. But ultimately, the decision of the agent is the decision of the people. So, in short, who makes the decision making? It is actually the people. But it is only delegated to your agents or to those who heads a particular department or agency or who is appointed in the government. And what is our check to balance this particular misuse of power? So it is the sovereign right of the people to change them if the authority is misused or abused. So we have the right if in case the authority we have given to these agents are misused or abused. But again, what we want to know here, the the persons who has the responsibility must work for the best interest of the people. Next, we discuss now government accounting. So, how do we define government accounting? So, government accounting is defined under the law as this way. Government accounting encompasses the processes of analyzing, recording, classifying, summarizing, and communicating all transactions involving the receipt and disposition of government funds and property and interpreting the results thereof. So if you try to look at it, one thing is only different in this definition into the definition of an accounting. So normal accounting is defined as for financial information. Here, it provides receipt and disposition of government funds. If you still remember, we place emphasis into the process of your government accounting. So the process of your government accounting starts with the appropriation or the budget. This appropriation will be allotted through the Department of Budget and Management, and you will incur obligations through this allotment, and finally, you will disburse. So, from the time you receive what is appropriated up to the time you dispose what is appropriated. But what is more importantly, we look to in e-government accounting or in government accounting is the usage of this fund and property. So the government fund and property. So it's still a process. So why is it a process? Because you will go through the different items here, analyzing, recording, classifying, summarizing, and communicating. Later, we will lay down the difference of normal accounting or your commercial accounting to your government accounting. So we have different activities. That's why it's called a process. Furthermore, it provides here that government accounting is a service activity. So why is it a service activity? Because of course, the quantitative information, which is the receipt and disposition of your government funds and property, will be used to make decisions. Why is it a service activity? Service, because whatever is the result of your accounting will be used to make decisions. And evaluate the stewardship of the person responsible over the fund and property. Okay? So you will learn soon that this evaluation of your stewardship is based on three main points. So efficiency, effectiveness, and your economy. So again, it's a service because it makes decision. It helps you to make decisions and you evaluate the stewardship of the person entrusted with responsibility over the fund and property. Now, there are three types of governmental organizational units. So we have already discussed this early on that in the definition of your government, it is purely one-sided for national government agencies. But now look at it, we have your governmental organization, we have your NGAs, your national government units or national government agencies. These are all agencies which can be said to be your departments, so like Department of Health, Department of Social Welfare and Development, Department of Finance, uh, any department. And then aside from your departments, we also have your bureaus, your favorite, BIR, BTR, Bureau of Treasury. So those are Land and Management Bureau. Those are different bureaus. Some also are still called offices. Some are called commissions. So these are all national government units or agencies. Next, you have your local government units. These are political subdivisions for local affairs. When we say local affairs, these are your provinces, cities, municipalities, barangay, the lowest level of local government. And then lastly, your government-owned and controlled corporations. So these are corporations that is wholly or partially owned by the government and the control is within the government. So when we look into your GOCCs can be with original charter or without original charter. So what is the difference of a GOCC with an original charter and without original charter? So when we say that the GOCC is with an original charter, it means that it is created by a specific law. So a law creates that government-owned and controlled corporation. Example, BSP. How about without original charter? These are government-owned and controlled corporations which is created by the General Corporation Law. So it is created by the General Corporation Law. There is no separate law creating it, but it is created pursuant to the law or the corporation law. Okay? So that is your government accounting and your governmental organizational units. Now, let's talk about your function of government accounting. We stressed a while back that the purpose of your government accounting is to render service, and this rendering of service, the vis-a-vis, will look into the efficiency and effectiveness, including the economy, including, of course, the use of that information for decision making. So let's look now, therefore, into the function of your government accounting. So what really is the function of government accounting? So the function of government accounting is to provide quantitative information, primarily financial in nature, about the operations of government, both national and local, to be used by the administration in making decisions for more effective and efficient public service. So if we try to compare that to your conceptual framework, to the law provided for your government accounting, under conceptual framework, it is a quantitative information used primarily for decision-making purposes. And the decision-making purposes depends on your users. So who are your primary users again under your conceptual framework? The primary users are your owners and your lenders. Why are they considered as your primary users? They are considered your primary users because based on your accounting equation, asset is equal to liabilities plus OE. Your asset is contributed by liabilities, which is your lenders, and by your OE, which are your owners. Therefore, your asset pertains to them. Since your asset pertains to them, there are the primary users. And what is the main decision that the owner will make as to the quantitative information, whether to invest or to withdraw? How about your lenders? Your lenders, the main issue is to provide or not provide credit. Furthermore, as to your collection. So those are the main uses of the quantitative information for decision making only. Here, in your government, the quantitative information is also used for decision making, but not only decision making. Uh, it also encompasses stewardship. That is your effective and efficient public service. So there are two main purposes now. The main function in your conceptual framework is only the decision making. Here, not only decision making, but also efficient and effective public service, which is stewardship. So as we go through your introduction to your government accounting, you will learn that mostly government accounting revolves around your funds and properties, and these funds and properties must be properly utilized, particularly for decision making and for stewardship. And these funds or properties, we will look into the process on how it will go through a particular agency or a government instrumentality. So that is the function of government accounting if we compare it to your conceptual framework. In your conceptual framework, it is mainly for decision making. Secondary to it is for stewardship of the administration. While for government, it already encompasses both stewardship and decision making. Now, let's look into the objectives of government accounting. So the first objective of government accounting under Section 10 of PD 1445 is to provide quantitative information concerning past operations and present conditions. And you already know what's the use of that for decision making and stewardship checking. Now, for this one, if we try to compare it to your conceptual framework, for conceptual framework, it is only regarding your past events. It does not encompass present conditions. So normally, it is only historical. So that's the difference. Here, we place past operations and present conditions. Actually, your conceptual framework, I think, just did not include present conditions because, as you well know, under past 37, we can present your present conditions through your notes to financial statements or through an adjustment to your financial statements subsequent events, if you still remember. So we have subsequent events, events after the reporting period. Those are considered present conditions. They can still be reported. However, conceptual framework did not place that in its definition. It only talks about past or historical events. But under 1445, we include both past and present conditions. Number two, to provide a basis for guidance for future operations. Why? Because we make use of the quantitative information for the usage or creation of the budget. So what we do normally when we go through the budgeting process, you will see that the budget process will start by the government agency or instrumentality sending that proposed budget to the DBM, and that particular budget will go into scrutiny by the DBM itself and by the Congress itself until it is properly appropriated. So this particular previous information can be used for future operations, not only for budget, but also to improve your service to the people for a more effective and efficient public service, as we earlier said. Number three, to provide for control of the account of public entities and officers in the receipt, disposition, and utilization of funds. We have already placing emphasis as to this whole process from the time it is appropriated, allotted, obligated, and disbursed. So we will account for that. The government accounting provides for a mechanism for proper accounting of these items of public funds and properties, proper receipt, disposition, and finally, utilization. Fourth, to report a financial position and result of operations of the government agencies for the information of all concerned persons. Actually, this is quite the same only with your commercial accounting. Why? Because PFR says whatever is financial statements that you know, these are the same financial statements in the government. We still have income statement, statement of financial position, or balance sheet. We still have those items. So still the same. Now we look into the users of government accounting info. So who are the users of government accounting info? The first one is the general public or citizenry. Why? Because we are considered the owners of the government. Being the owners of the government, we must really look into the financial condition of our government. We look whether we are still in the going concern, are we leveraged, or are we going into bankruptcy or liquidation? If ever you're reading the news, recently Sri Lanka government announced bankruptcy. So you must, we as the people or the citizens of this government must really look or pay attention to these items. Furthermore, the financial information of our government is free. We can always access it. So as citizen, we look into this financial information, not only looking into whether they are really used in a proper manner or whether we can see progress into our government. Not only looking into these statements or financial infos when there are news about it or there is a big scandal about it. That's improper. So we are considered primary users of the financial info for our government. Let's make use of that. Number two, the governing and oversight bodies, normally the president, the cabinet, COA, and legislative body. So why does the government governing and oversight bodies look into the financial data? The financial data or financial info are looked into so that we see whether, or these governing and oversight bodies see whether the proper policies are implemented, whether the funds are used in a proper manner, it is dispersed in the proper manner, it is dispersed on where it is appropriated, and whether the funds are properly handled. So they look into that. So aside from the normal rules and regulations, whether they are adhered into, we look mostly into the usage of the fund, whether they are properly handled or not. Third, the managers or administrators who are in charge of carrying out the policy and daily conduct of government affairs. So why are they considered users? Because we said one of the objectives of the government is for efficient and effective public service. So based on the financial info, they will look into on how they will improve their public service or the service they will provide to the people. Furthermore, uh, they are concerned with their performance. So based on that financial info, they will look into their performance. The financial info will guide them in the performance or future performance of their duties. Next, user is the students of public finance that is, of course, in the pursuit of their studies or research. And lastly, the resource providers of the government. Actually, you can include here your taxpayers as a resource provider of the government. But since taxpayers are also the general public, then we remove them. But actually, I can say they can be included because taxpayers can be the citizen of the Philippines, whether resident or non-resident, and we have also alien taxpayers. So perhaps the alien taxpayers are also um, interested in our financial info because this is within this, but this is not within the citizenry. It is within taxpayer only. Another resource provider is your donor. So the donor, of course, is interested whether their donation is properly make use of, to which it is set aside, whether the accomplishments were in order, whether, of course, it is properly implemented as to the donor imposed restriction on that donation. You can also include here lenders, employees, suppliers. So they are resource providers of the government. Okay. So here we talk about three main topics. First, the government itself. We try to distinguish it between the government to your commercial enterprise. We also talk about government accounting, the functions of government accounting, the objectives of government accounting, and finally, the users of government accounting.